This week we got a couple of real quick projects to finish up the Tuscan. We're going to do arm wraps, waist, sash. Other than boots, it's everything for a Tuscan. I'm not going to go into boots. But we're going to do everything else. The arm wraps are super easy. There's 4 or 5 different ways of doing it. I do the Velcro over kind just because it's what I like. I like the adjustability of it. So let me show you what I've got so far. We're just going to jump right into it, knock this out. Shouldn't take too long. And then the Tuscan is going to be done. I've got a piece, scrap canvas. It's already folded in half, so I've got 2 pieces because there's a left and a right, obviously. So what I've done is I've measured my arm. It's going to be 10 inches, right? It's a bit long. I'm going to trim it to size. Excuse me. I'd rather be long and have the person I'm making it for trim it to size. He's about the same build as I am. I like loose on my arm wraps, so I'm going with a 9-inch wrist, and then I don't know, 11-inch, maybe 12-inch. I might go full 12-inch on the forearm just so there's room to stuff the inner robe in. So what we got to do, measure down and over. I'll bring in so you can see exactly the randomness that is my math. Here's the piece we're working on. This edge is pretty good. We're going to go over 12 inches. I'm going to go down 9. Well, first we're going to find the center. 6. Then go down and find the center here, which is 6. Going down 9 inches. And then from that center mark, we're going 4.5 and 4.5. Which just put us at 9. First thing I usually do is draw my straight line, because that tells me where my arc needs to be. So we want a direct 90 degree coming off from the line we just drew. And if this is our mark, because we're going to 9, we're going to want to angle it probably right about there. This is all guesswork. Don't let nobody tell you that they know what they're doing. I'm sure there are exact equations on how to do this. It's just a gentle arc, right? So when it folds over on itself, you don't have a weird point. That's all this is. Again, I want to go like from the 90 towards the point and towards the point. It should put us at about 9 inches, which we are. Now I'm going to add an inch for Velcro, because we need at least an inch overlap. There is no seam allowance on this. First thing we're going to do is zigzag stitch all the way around to stop it from fraying. It's Tuscan, so it does not have to be perfect. It's better if it's not. So since I have these folded over, all I gotta do is cut it out. That was stupid. As soon as I started cutting, I'm like, that's not right. It's alright. We'll zigzag stitch that closed. It's not a big deal. I may even put a second layer behind just for extra reinforcement. So, I'm going to fix this, and then we'll pick back up there. Here's what I did. I grabbed a 2-inch piece, stitched it right on top. I zigzag stitched the whole thing, and then I put a zigzag stitch all along. Kind of treat it like a suture. It's a Tuscan, so it's not that big of a deal, but that was a stupid mistake. Always pay attention to what you're cutting. I, of course, mirrored the other side, because, you know, why wouldn't I? Yeah. Now, I'm going to trim off some of this extra and do a zigzag stitch all the way around the outside. And that's, again, just to act as an overlock stitch, just to make sure we don't, you know, fray too much that it's not even usable. So the next step is to add Velcro. I'm actually using Velcro even. This is the horrible Velcro that they have at Michael's, but it's where I went, that's what I got. I'm going to put a strip right along this edge. I'm going to give it a little bit of a gap, but not much. I'm using the fuzzy side because that's the side that's going to be towards the skin. And then I do the exact same thing on this one, but make sure you mirror it because there is a left and a right. Nothing's worse than having two left hands. So we're going to stitch Velcro on. Again, it's just a standard zigzag stitch. I'll do that real quick though. And then we'll go on from there. This is the easy part. That was the easy part. This is the fun part. I'm going to take the Velcro, lay it down. We're going to start wrapping. These are the same wraps I used for the bucket. All you're going to do is glue a bunch of wraps down. You want to make sure you don't just, stack them linearly. You want to, move them around. Let's make sure before I get too far ahead of myself. I am happy with that. That's going to look fantastic. So, the glue I'm using, Aleene's fabric glue, whatever you can get. Fabric Fusion's good. The clear stuff is alright. I don't have any of the stuff I used to use, which they discontinued, and its stuff is fantastic. But Fabric Fusion is actually pretty good. It folds, it's flexible. This is the same glue we used for the bucket. Excuse me while I go dump this. And then we're going to start the gluing. Pretty easy. Kim used hot glue for hers. Hot glue would absolutely work as well. I prefer the permanence of fabric glue. Keep in mind the contours, the bends of the Tuscan. Don't make straight lines, especially on the edge. You want things to overlap a bit. You want them to fray wherever you can. Just like every process we did with the bucket, we're doing with this too. Right? It's pretty much the same thing. Make overlaps. So I have the Velcro on this side, right? So this is going to be the top. There's going to be a piece that gets overlapped here, so we don't have to worry about this edge at all. I may even stitch everything down on that side once we're done. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out together. I'm absolutely not a fan of stitching these, just because I don't want to see stitches if I can avoid it. I want to see much more movement. Ooh. That's kind of neat. I'm just laying these down. I'm not thinking. I'm not pre-planning. Tuscans are very freeform. That's part of their appeal. The glue does not seem to want to cooperate today. It is cold. These wraps don't have to make sense, by the way. There doesn't have to be an origin or an end. It could just be random wraps in a random pattern. The more random you make it, the easier it is to believe that it's a thing. It's a living thing. I know Tuscan wraps aren't living, but they are in the sense that they constantly get replaced by the Tuscans. Shouldn't have to replace your own wraps. Although I've seen quite a few that have had to. Come on. None of my glue wants to flow today. Sawdust covered wraps. Yeah, I'm going to go and warm this up a little bit. I'll be right back. All right. A little bit of hot water. That'll probably help. Probably won't. Right. Let's go this way. Straight across. Straight across sounds good, right? Thought so. I want this one on top now. Seem to be running out of glue. That'll work. Again, don't try to overthink this. We're just throwing wraps on a thing. One more should do it. It's already starting to cool off, so we'll put it back in the warm water. All right. I'll bring this up to you. So that's what we got, right? That is our arm wrap, and that looks fantastic. I love the movement. I love it's not straight lines, things, you know, cantilever here and there. We're going to take our other side of our Velcro and stitch it right there. Since this side wraps over, I'm just going to put it straight down, stitch right on top of it. My needle does not like sewing through wet fabric. And this fabric is still kind of wet. But it's good enough for now. I'll go back over it later once everything has had time to dry. But this produces that. I like it. It's pretty good. Probably going to go over everything a little more with some glue, because I got a couple spots where, you know, could use a little bit of extra here and there. Hides the Velcro pretty good. I like it. I'm going to make another one. Then we're going to go over waist sash. So now for the waist sash. The waist sash is actually quite easy. This is just a cut off of monk's cloth. It gets covered up mostly by the bandoliers. I'm going with about that big, right? Fold it a bit. Now Peter was laced into his when they were filming. I may cut this bottom strip off because that's got the finish edge. I don't like that. I want a little bit of wear, a little fray. Alright, we'll take it from there. Was laced into his, and I'm not a big fan of that because I don't want to. I like getting dressed on my own if I can. Doesn't always work, but whenever possible, I like taking care of things myself. You might be at a troop and, you know, no handlers. It happens. So all I'm doing is bunching the fabric up here and there to make it a little thinner. I want to be able to have options with this. So I've just pleated a couple of times. I'm going to do a zigzag stitch all the way across here, just so I don't have to worry about anything really. This is probably the most haphazard I am with the costume. Is the Tuscan accessories. Just going to grab a wrap and do as the name implies. It's just going to go around a couple of times. This is just going to add a bit of stability to the monk's cloth. On these I do try to be a little different than I normally would. I try and make sure things aren't lined up perfectly. Just the nature of the costume and all that. This goes on behind the outer robe, so it should almost never be seen, except for when you're suiting up. Lost my thread. So now this is also the underside. I flipped over. Right? There's going to be another piece that goes on top. No, I mean, you'll see. I'm getting ahead of myself. So for the other side, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. Except I'm trying not to make my seams match up, my folds. I want a variety. I want them to move a little differently. Causes everything in front, since this is the back, to line up just a little different. Makes things flow a bit better. So I want them to be about the same size. We're going to do the exact same thing to this side as the first side. So start with a zigzag stitch, just to lock everything in place. Then a couple of wraps around it. And then things get interesting. And I've got 4 snaps set up. We're going to evenly space these, well, as evenly as we can. Let's make sure which side is the front. Not that it really matters. I think I want this to be the front. Luckily it's monk's cloth, so we don't need to actually, hammer these open. Don't cut your fingers. So Peter Diamond was laced into his outfit, right? I like the option to get in and out on my own. And because of that, I've devised this little system. Just a bunch of snaps. Put snaps on one side, snaps on the other, and then we lace the 2 pieces together. That way we can snap one side closed. And you'll see. It's hard to explain. Easy to do. Hands don't work well in the cold. Smart thing to do would be just grab my punch that's right there. Punch hole in this stuff. That is too easy and intelligent. So I'm going to keep fighting with it. Same way I have been. Because why not, right? Doesn't matter if these are evenly spaced out. Doesn't matter if they're all weird or wonky. It's a Tuscan thing. It's the only costume you really get to, good enough. I mean, clones are kind of like that, but the armor still has to be right. The same thing has to be true with Tuscans. You have to be right. You have to look the part. But we've had so many Tuscans with so many different things going on, especially now that The Mandalorian's released. I got a dozen more. Originally there was just a 3, and then the 2 from the prequels. So, now we need to make the part that goes on top of this. And I'm going to use a piece of leather just to thicken up my fabric a bit. A couple of wraps. I wish I had a bigger wrap, but unfortunately I don't. I use that for arm wraps for some reason. Sounds like we might have a visitor in a second. So, I'm going to pause this for a minute. I'll be right back. I have my piece of leather. It's going to work as filler. Just going to bulk it up a bit. First thing I'm going to do is punch holes where all the other snaps are. Use a hole punch. That hole punch is garbage. Primarily because it's been abused. I have not taken care of it. And as such, we are here. These don't have to be exact. They don't have to be perfect, but you know, we want to get as close as we can. I'm going to go punch these holes real quick. So you don't have to buy a ton of tools to do leather working, but you absolutely get what you pay for. I bought a bunch of inexpensive tools because I wasn't sure if I was going to get into leather work or not. With tools, you absolutely get what you pay for. And I'm getting what I paid for. I haven't quite taken care of them either. They're a little bit rusty now. All right. I want to center this on the inside like that, right? I don't want to see any of my snaps, because that hardware wasn't visible. So I'm just working back and forth until the weave opens up enough that the post pops through. Take your time. It's not like 1,000 threads per inch, so it's not the best fabric in the world in the first place. So it shouldn't take too long. Wrap that around. I know, it'll make sense. Seems a little weird. It's because it is. So now we hold it flat. Looks like a wrap. I'm going to put a stitch all along both edges Being careful not to sew my snaps. There. So now what we have is this strap. I can just snap into place. This way. I'm going to put a bunch of eyelets on this side and eyelets on this side and lace these two pieces together, right? So that we can unsnap them when we need to take it on or off, and it looks like we've been laced into it the whole time. I'm going to put about a bunch of laces. I have no idea how many. I really should get a drill or something for this, because I have an awl. I'll use an awl. Couldn't find my awl. I do have a small drill bit, which should work the same. Mind your fingers. So when I picked up my new crimper, I got a bunch of hardware that came with it. This one's still a little small for my normal eyelets, but it'll work for these. Let's go brass. These eyelets are completely optional. You could just thread through some cording and it would work just as well. Which may be the route I'm going, because yeah, I am lazy. Let's see how that'll look before we get all fancy. Because it would save me a heck of a lot of time. I'm just using standard twine. I normally use paracord, but the paracord I have is black, and yeah, it's not the right color. Honestly, if I had a fid that fit, this would be perfect. Maybe a bigger drill bit. I'm going to get a bigger drill bit. Let's see if that works. It's all trial and error. Alright, let's set this up right. Take a moment to readjust our environment to suit our needs a bit better. They're tool-using creatures after all. There we go. So now this one might be a little tougher because I'm going through leather as well. So I may have to go get a drill. If I had a drill, I would just drill it and just go get a drill. So I always tell my daughter to go and get the right tools for the right job. And here I am, not doing that thing. There we go. A punch would probably be the better tool. I have nothing but problems with my tools today. about that. It's an absolute guess because I know I'm not going to need nearly this much. But I'd rather have too much and not need it. There we go. Like that, I can get rid of these. Move that out of the way. That looks good. So the problem with doing this is this table is not necessarily the most stable of things. So when I hit down, the legs absorb a good chunk of the downward force. And I'm onto the plywood, onto the table, onto the legs, onto the floor. Lots of room for movement. So I need to find something that's heavy, solid, and that I can hit real hard. I moved to the floor. Took literally minutes. And it's done. I constantly fight with myself because I'm trying to figure something out or do something, and I'm like, I get fixated on a single process, right? I think we all do that. You got to remember, there is more than one way to do this thing. And you should constantly stop and ask yourself, is the way I'm doing it the right way, the fast way, or the best way? The answer to all of those this time was no. So I just moved to where I needed. Now I'm just lacing. The nice thing is, this will only ever have to be laced once, really. Unless something happens to this twine, this is it. Seem to be off sides. Let's see if we can fix that in a second. That's a bit better. There we go. So, this, way to make me feel fat, just snaps in place, right? Let me snap it and show you. So, that's it, right? That is not bad. Nice thing is we just put it on this way. It's easier to do. You have someone helping you, of course. But it's completely conceivable. Put it on yourself. Yes, I only did one snap. So, that should be about it for the Tuscan. Let's put everything together and see what we got. Here it is. The inner robe's a little short because it's for my wife. But everything else, very happy with it. Now that it's 100%, we're good to go. I'm very, very happy with this Tuscan. That should be about it for the Tuscan build. It was real fun doing it. I enjoyed bringing you along. I hope you learned something. Hope you built it. So, still got stuff in here. So, if you liked it, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Let's go take on a crate dragon.